If you're feeling like you're having a hard time finding your lower abs or engaging your pelvic floor without putting in all this effort, we're going to use a position where gravity is helping us. So if you think about our internal contents as water in a water bottle, we can use an inverted position where your hips are higher than your shoulders to help lift and unload your pelvic floor and kind of lift basically your guts off of your lower abs. So again, if we think about our water bottle here and the water's on the bottom, as I flip myself upside down, then all of my internal contents are going to go up and into my thoracic cavity and unload my pelvic floor. This can be particularly helpful for individuals that have prolapse, where our internal contents are just hanging down a little bit lower and we need a little bit more support. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go into a forearms and knees position. As this feels good, you can progressively elevate your knees more as long as your upper body strength can handle it. Sometimes the limiting factor is going to be more about serratus strength, but that's another video. All right, so as we're here, we can go on to our forearms here. So my hips are higher than my shoulders. So I can think about everything kind of sloshing up into my thoracic cavity. I'm paying attention that I'm in kind of more of a neutral position to start rather than already being kind of tucked under here. So you can kind of give a little wiggles maybe, kind of go forwards and backwards, and then just find that neutral position. I'm making sure that I'm not sinking down on my ribs, but I'm giving a little bit of a press out while at the same time also not dropping my chest down. You can see how that would put more engagement in my upper abs and pressure down into my lower abs. So I'm giving that press out. So now as I'm here, I'm inhaling into my back, into my hips, into my chest wall, armpits, and shoulders, feeling that expansion out, not up. And then I'm going to exhale and think about my hip bones, abs, ribs, knitting around towards each other and lifting everything up and off of my pelvic floor. I might give a slight kind of gathering together and lift up of my pelvic floor as long as I don't have pelvic floor tightness. But here it should feel easier to kind of get that lift without over recruiting on it. I'm going to keep a little bit of that ab tension. Inhale again into my sides, back, hips, and chest wall. And then exhale, maybe I can lift up a little bit more. So you can try that for subsequent breaths. And afterwards, hopefully you feel like things are feeling a little less heavy and bogging down with it. Now we can think about if you do have the tendency to have an overactive pelvic floor, we're going to make sure that we get our breath to go back and into it. So to help with that, we can add squeezing a block between the knees with it. We can add a little bit of a pressing my arms forward. So you can see how that helps me sit back into my hips and feel my sit bones widen on it. I can also think about pulling my heels up on a wall, or here I conveniently have that bar to find a little hamstrings. And I can do a little bit of a tuck under and a lift up while I'm engaging those hamstrings to kind of just unstick this area back here. Now that can make it easier to send that breath into that space. And then as you go to exhale, you might feel a little bit more of a nod and lift of the front of your pelvic floor rather than a tuck and squeeze from the back side. Everything gathers in together. Those adductors can squeeze in to help find a little more abs in front pelvic floor. And then keeping that adductor squeeze and a little bit of lower ab tension, inhale into the back, sides, and hips. And then exhale and lift up a little bit more, making sure that you don't drop that chest down, but keep that nice length with it. Now, if you have any front-sided pelvic floor tightness that can go with symptoms that feel like a UTI, burning or bubbling feeling, then we don't want to add in those adductors or front pelvic floor lift. We're going to look into some other things for that. But hopefully here you can kind of use a little bit of that exploration and see how we can use that inverted position to help unload your pelvic floor and lower abs, to help get a better natural lift without having to work so hard against gravity, as well as working on opening up other parts of that rib cage and pelvis that are a little bit stickier that can end up resulting in more pressure down into our pelvic floor.